Hello guys, I'm Rakesh from Analytics Plus, and welcome to part two of this webinar series on how to implement continuous service improvement. In part one of this webinar series, we discussed how to continuously improve on request resolution times. If you haven't been able to attend it, head on over to manageengine.com/analytics-plus/resources and scroll down to the video section of the webinar recording. In fact, to make it easier, you can probably just even head on over to youtube.com and check the ManageEngine channel for a recording of the previous webinar. All right, so in today's session, we're going to discuss the steps to continuously improve your SLA compliance percentage. Please use the chat icon on the bottom right corner of your webinar screen to post your questions. I will answer them in an email post completion of this webinar. All right, so as discussed in the previous webinar, these are the 5 steps to implement continuous service improvement. First step is to identify the metric that you wish to continuously improve. In our case, it's going to be SLA compliance percentage. Step 2 is to status check the current status of the metric, which means you'll have to get an idea of where your SLA compliance is in the current stage, which means you need to find out, how your SLA compliance is doing at this moment in time. And after we do that, we need to identify the factors that impact SLA compliance, and then we'll have to come up with a way to monitor these factors. And finally, we'll use analytics to continuously monitor improvements in your SLA compliance percentage. All right, so we've already identified the metric that we want to improve on, that is going to be SLA compliance. Step 2 is to status check the current status of your SLA compliance. Now, the best way to do that is running a report that shows you the average compliance across different support groups. To run this report, we're going to use Analytics Plus. ManageEngine Analytics Plus is a business intelligence and analytics solution from ManageEngine. You can integrate Analytics Plus with ManageEngine Service Desk Plus or any other help desk in a matter of a few minutes. Setting up the integration with Service Desk Plus is very simple because Analytics Plus offers out-of-the-box integration with ManageEngine Service Desk Plus. If you're interested in setting up this integration, log into your Service Desk Plus application, go to the admin panel, and look for Advanced Analytics and follow the on-screen instructions on how to set up the integration. If you're looking for a step-by-step guide, you can head over to YouTube and search for integration between Service Desk Plus and Analytics Plus. As soon as you set up the integration, you can get out-of-the-box reports and dashboards in a matter of a few minutes. All right, so coming back to our steps to implement continuous service improvement. Now, the first step, like I said, is to status check, or the second step is to status check your compliance percentage. A simple report like this one, which shows you the percentage of requests that were resolved within the configured SLA, should give you a fair idea of how your SLA compliance is looking. You can also choose to use a report that shows you the absolute number of requests that were resolved within the configured SLA, but I always prefer percentages in these cases because they give you a better sense of the situation, especially in cases where the number of incoming requests vary by a large degree every month. All right, so in my case, the SLA compliance looks pretty dismal, to say the least. My compliance percentage is somewhere between 14 and 15%, which means about 85% of my requests are breaching SLA. I obviously need to do something really quick. So the step 3 is identifying factors that impact SLA compliance. Now, according to me, these are the 3 top factors that influence SLA compliance: technician load, ticket inflow volume, and outdated SLA configuration. Now, as someone who has worked in technical support or tech support for a good part of their professional career, I can say for sure that there is only a handful of requests a help desk technician can concentrate on at any given point in time. Now, when there are way too many high priority tickets assigned to one technician, it gets really hard for them to keep track of when those tickets are about to breach SLA and prioritize them efficiently. Too many requests are usually a recipe for a lot of SLA violations. Now, ticket volume can be unpredictable sometimes. A simple outage on one of your services can spark a flood of tickets headed your way. This can easily throw off your technicians and your SLA compliance. In addition to the overall ticket volume, the average number of tickets that come into your help desk on an hourly basis is something that we need to watch out for also. In any help desk, there are going to be hours where the incoming volume is at a high and hours when the help desk is not too busy. Now, these hours of high ticket volume can have an adverse effect on SLA compliance if not managed properly. And the final one is outdated SLA configuration. Though it's not that prevalent a reason, I included this factor because it is something that help desk managers don't pay attention to. Think about it. When was the last time you revisited your SLA configurations? As your help desk evolves, the nature of requests, your technician expertise, the type of services that you offer, and the ticket volume are probably quite different from what they were a few years ago. An SLA that you configured 3 years ago might be too stringent for the current day, resulting in a lot of SLA violated requests. So that is step three. We've identified the different factors that impact SLA compliance. Now, step four is to come up with a way to monitor these factors. Now, the number one on our list is technician load. Technician load factor report is the best way to keep tabs on the load on technicians. Now, a load factor is calculated by dividing the total number of tickets currently assigned to the technician by the average amount of time available to resolve those requests. Now, this report is a handy indicator of how much work each technician has on their hands. For example, in my case, I can see that the load on Frederica Watson, Brad Jessup, and Sean Adams and Lynn Hendricks is almost twice as it is compared to the other technicians in my help desk. In order to avoid SLA violations, it is best for me to distribute or shuffle tickets in such a way that the ticket load is even across the board. That is how you can combat or you can take stock of technician or take stock of the load on your technicians. Now, the next on our list is ticket inflow volume. Now, when it comes to ticket volume, help desk managers need to watch out for two metrics. Number one is the overall incoming ticket volume, and number two is the ticket volume by hour of day. The overall incoming ticket volume is pretty easy to catch. Now, a sudden spike or dip in the number of incoming requests will show up pretty starkly on a monthly incoming trend report like this one that you see here. So in my case, I can see a spike in May 2017 and an immediate dip in June 2017. Since sudden spikes in ticket inflow happen only when there is a major outage, the best way to handle them is to have a separate set of technicians handle such requests because the resolution for all those requests are more or less going to be similar. Now, ticket volume by hour of day is something very important to understand because it tells you the time of the day when request volume is really high. On the x-axis, you have the different hours of the day spanning from 12 a.m. to 11 p.m. at 1 hour intervals. In my case, I can see that a lot of requests are coming into my help desk at around 3 a.m., 5 a.m., and then between the hours of 11 a.m. and let's say 3 p.m. Now, this report is very useful. in making staffing decisions because you would want the majority of your technicians available during these peak hours. Now, when you have enough technicians to handle high volume during the peak hours, there's a better chance to avoid SLA violations. Now, the third factor on our list was outdated SLA configurations. Now, when you have SLAs that are not realistic, it might feel like you're constantly swimming against the tide. Now, take a look at this SLA deviation report that shows the average resolution time for each SLA configuration, represented by the bars, and the respective target for each of these SLA configurations represented by the horizontal threshold lines. The target for high SLA requests is 1 hour, represented by this line here, whereas the actual average resolution time for high SLAs is more than 3 hours. Now, let's use the drill down option to see if the average resolution time in this particular SLA is common for all technicians across the board. That way we can rule out if it's just only a few technicians who are having a problem adhering to the SLA or if it is common across all technicians across the board. When I drill down by technician, I can see the average resolution time for all the technicians when it comes to tickets that have an high SLA configuration. And I can see more or less majority of my technicians have a resolution time of anywhere between 2 hours to about 4.5 hours. So it's not a matter of a few technicians falling behind. It's pretty obvious that all technicians are having trouble trying to stick to the SLA. So it's almost unrealistic to expect your help desk technicians to bring the resolution time down from 3 hours to 1 hour in a short span of time. So this is a classic case of a situation where your SLA configurations have to be revisited in order to make them more realistic to the current situation. In situations where you conclude that SLAs cannot be reconfigured and needs to be adhered to, the only way is to increase the headcount of the number of technicians who are handling requests so that each technician will have more time and less number of tickets to work on and provide resolutions to. All right, so we looked at how you can take stock of the current SLA compliance, factors that influence compliance, and the steps you can take to improve on your SLA compliance. Right, so a quick recap of what you can do to combat these factors when it comes to technician load. Maintain a technician load factor. In other words, distribute the tickets evenly so that your technicians are not overloaded. And when it comes to ticket volume, keep an eye on the incoming ticket trend and also the out of the day volume. And when it comes to outdated SLA configurations, measure or find out the extent of SLA deviations from the target. Now, the most important part is to continuously monitor your changes to see if it is making a positive impact on your SLA compliance. Now, this is the initial report that we started out with, or a copy of the report that we started out with initially, which showed us the SLA compliance across different support groups. Now, I'm going to introduce an additional metric that will show me the SLA compliance from 3 months ago. So each category will have two bars, one representing the current compliance percentage and the other one representing the SLA compliance from the past. So in my case, the red bars represent the SLA compliance from 3 months ago, and the green bar represents the current SLA compliance. So this report can be used to visually verify improvements in your compliance. And your function as a help desk manager is very simple. It is to ensure that the green bar representing the current SLA compliance is taller than the red bar representing the compliance percentage from the past. This signifies that the compliance has improved over time. Additionally, you can set up your SLA compliance targets as thresholds on this report to give you a visual reference of where your SLA compliance needs to be. So those are the 5 different steps to implement continuous service improvement when it comes to SLA compliance. Since a major portion of continuous service improvement involves measuring your status and working towards where you want to be, an analytic solution such as Analytics Plus would be very handy because it has a lot of these pre-built reports readily available, and it also gives you the flexibility to create custom reports as you wish. Now, you can download a free trial of Analytics Plus using the QR code flashing on your screen if you haven't already. And once you download Analytics Plus, if you need some help building custom reports to match your specific need, you can also sign up for a one-on-one session where our experts will help you set up Service Desk Plus reports based on your specific needs. So if you already downloaded Analytics Plus and you're evaluating Analytics Plus, or if you're already an existing customer of Analytics Plus, you can simply use the QR code on the screen to sign up for a one-on-one session. So that is all from me today. I'll meet you again in part 3 of this webinar series, in which I'll be discussing how to continuously improve on your service delivery times. If you haven't signed up for it already, please use the QR code flashing on your screen to register for part 3 of this webinar. Until then, it's Rakesh signing off, and I will see you again in part 3 very soon. Thank you.